Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Filter Copy with Asha. This is where I serve you stories for the soul. I just realized that my weekly sessions were getting a little one sided. I would love to hear from you. Let's have a dialogue. This is about us, this is about our lives. So please write into me, please comment on the stories that you hear from me. Let me know if there has been an aha moment in the story that you could relate to, something that made you take a relook at your belief systems, something that endorsed your own belief systems, something that you thought would make a difference to you, something that inspired you. Anything that you feel about the stories are welcome. Because at the end of the day, our stories are all the same in their core. And we are in this together, in this game of life. So please write in. I'm waiting to hear from you. Let me begin with a well-known and much-loved coffee story, for once not written by me. A group of alumni, all successful in their respective careers, once went to meet their old professor. After the initial pleasantries and small talks, the professor went in to fetch some coffee for his former students. He returned with a large pot of coffee and an assortment of cups made of different materials. Silver, porcelain, some pretty, some plain, some with ornate designs embossed on them. Now this professor was a wise old man. He wanted to put his former students to the real test of life. Although he was mighty pleased that they had all made a mark on the world, he suspected that they had not decoded life fully to their advantage, and he wanted to gauge their understanding of success and happiness. He left the cups and the coffee pot on the table and sat back in his chair and asked his boys and girls, who of course by now were men and ladies, to help themselves to the freshly brewed coffee. The boys and girls huddled around the table, picked a cup of their choice, filled it with coffee, and took their seats, waiting for the old man to speak. Moments of silence passed amidst measured sips. And then the professor spoke. Did you notice how you have all taken the most beautiful and expensive looking cups to have the same coffee that's in the pot? The silence in the room deepened. The silence in the room deepened, and the students shifted uneasily in their seats. You've come a long way in life. You have added laurels to your name, but you have failed to learn the basics of life. You still value the cup and not what's inside it, until you realize that the cup is only a container and what refreshes you is that which is inside it. Your worldly success means close to nothing, the professor said conclusively to a room full of stunned achievers. This is one of my favorite stories on life, one that helps me reset myself every time I slip up or begin to lose sight of the real thing. I happened to pass by one such occasion recently. It's more than a month since my latest book, Life is an Emoji, was released. These are not the best of times to float a book. Yet, like the devout pilgrim who sends a lamp down the Ganges and follows it as far as her eyes can see, I launched the emoji book with a fervent prayer and controlled fanfare. As expected, along with other things, the book on life too got coronized and cornered, and it struggled to find a place on people's buying list. I knew it was in for a rough sale and had braced for it. But nothing could have prepared me for the unpleasant surprise that came in the speed post one day. 2 weeks ago, after a long wait, I received my author copies from the printer of my book's Indian edition. The book had come huffing and puffing through disruptions and delays, and boy, was I excited. Stay calm, lady. You must act your age and not hop around like a bunny that has seen a carrot, I said to myself, and assumed a fake poise as the husband ripped the parcel open and announced the physical release of the book in a dramatic manner. Ta-da! My excitement would have touched euphoric levels, you might think. But no. His words broke into gibberish as my eyes dilated and I stood in suspended animation staring at the book. No, this can't be true, I said to myself, as the husband handed me a copy unfazed, oblivious to my rising panic. I tried to make sense of what I saw in my hands. The book, from its covers, looked like a bona fide disaster. Asha, this isn't what you had planned, I said. The book isn't how you had envisioned it. This isn't what you had so eagerly waited to see. I felt the cover against my trembling palm. The blurry image on it and the hazy mess of text grated on my hand. I was stung to the quick. Is this what was going out to my readers? This ugly facade of what for more than a month was my pleasure and pride? To which I was singing paeans, convinced of its merit as a book that examined life from 360 degrees? In no time flat, I imagined becoming a laughingstock. I imagined being ridiculed, reviled, and being labeled a fake by the world. I saw my reputation as a soulful and inspiring raconteur going up in smoke. The tagline, "Writing stories for you," never felt like a sham as it did now. Filter copy never felt this bitter. That's how we respond to our smallest of setbacks, don't we? As if all the goodness of a lifetime, all the efforts and accolades can get nixed with one unkind stroke of luck. We've all been there time after time, haven't we? We promptly beat ourselves up and dump our self-worth for the smallest failings. We end up feeling like a crushed paper ball in the hands of a frustrated author who had lost his plot. Funny how in a jiffy we wipe out our merits and crumble in our own eyes. I absorbed what I saw initially with disbelief, then with revulsion, and then, as frenzy passed, with calm resignation. Something had gone wrong somewhere at the other end, and it was beyond me to reverse now. It was what it was. The Indian paperback edition of my book wasn't an attention grabber from the exterior. It looked like a poor, pirated copy of the original. Before the impulse to rip and fling the book to the floor could seize me, I took a deep breath and arrested that morbid thought. I ran my hand over its pale gloss again. I opened it, not knowing what to expect between the jackets. Like a new mother inspecting her baby, I riffled through the pages, afraid that I might just see another abnormality that I couldn't bear. I paraphrased Murphy and concluded with refined acceptance. Anything that can go wrong will. But then again, Murphy need not be correct every time. A little voice intervened to diffuse the doom. Just because something went wrong once, things need not always go down south. Even when they do, life will always find a way to get back on track for those who want to keep going. Much to my delight, the book inside was as impeccable as it could be. I took the book up to my nose, taking in its fresh fragrance, and felt a surge in my heart. My breath quickened as I was greeted by page after page of my creative quest, all laid out in a neat sequence, eager to be read, recalled, and get connected. The tragic cover story became irrelevant at once. What mattered was what was between the covers. It was then that I remembered the story of the old professor and his coffee cups. I sat down with a renewed sense of fulfillment, ignored the poorly produced covers, and dived deep into the book. Once inside, I was consumed by the authenticity of the thoughts and words which at some point in time had flowed through me. And somewhere among the pages, I read these lines. When do we consider ourselves successful? When credit is conferred on us by outsiders? Or when the insider categorically says, you are successful here, this moment, despite everything else that you see outside? Whose validation are we seeking after all? Our own or others? Success isn't about where others see you, it's about where you find yourself. It's not about how many miles there are to go. It is about how many paces you have come. How strange that my own book and my own words should serve me as a guide when my feet briefly floundered and I went through a moment of acute self-doubt. How grateful I am that every time I trip over a stone, a hand lifts me up and a voice goads me to carry on. Meanwhile, I wrote to the printers expressing my deep disappointment and sought an explanation. But I signed off my mail with a note of appreciation for the excellent job done between the covers. A good job done deserves the praise just as a shoddy job deserves the stick. And guess what? Not only did they profusely apologize, but they also fixed the fault and offered to replace all my author copies. They had erred, and they admitted to it without defending themselves. And I, for my part, acknowledged their positive response with a sincere note of thanks and commendation. Trust was won, and confidence was restored. It was even Stevens in the end.